Welcome to More with Gaby, where you always get more with me, even a double O and more. Today, I have the honor to be able to record this podcast with someone that has been so instrumental in my life and has guided me, coached me since I was 15 years of age, and helped me become the woman that I am today in my career path. I have the honor to introduce you to someone that is a husband, a father, a son, a high school teacher, and a life coach and investor. Talk about being busy and talk about making time for things, right? This is awesome. So now we have here Juan Carrera, the guy that has helped me be who I am today. Welcome to More with Gaby, Juan.
Thank you, Gabby. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. More than honor, it's a privilege to be here. I'm so happy for your success and where you're going with yourself. And I'm beyond words, to be honest with you. God has worked some
Thank you.
miracles in your life.
Absolutely. And you've been part of those miracles and have helped me go through emotional breakthroughs and through so many things in life, that obstacles that were thrown, health obstacles that I had, and challenges, and just overall, like sometimes our own self-sabotage, really. I think that those are probably some of the key things that we come across in life as we're trying to get to the next goal, or going on the journey that we said we're going to stay on this path. And then it's all these bumps and roads and you're like, what happened? Right?
Well, absolutely. There's been a lot of bumpy roads, if you can remember.
Oh, absolutely. You know what? And feel more than welcome to share some of those. I think that one of the most important keys of the podcast is to be able to show people what life coaching does, for one, and create the value around life coaching, but then also normalize struggle. And right before this call, I think we were talking about certain things that, that we come across, and that we think that it's important, like when we were talking about, being a son or being a daughter, right? And,
Right.
coming from immigrant parents and having them, come over to America, and how that actually is some sense of responsibility to us. And people don't understand that. Can you elaborate more on that?
You know what? I've always said, it's coming from parents who migrated to this country for the first time. It's a responsibility of not only academic success but career success at the same time, because
Absolutely.
it's you have the as the offspring, like that intentions are already set for you, that dream is already set for you. And sometimes us growing up, we fall behind our own dreams because we're living our parents' dreams or our parents' goals. And that's to become a doctor or to become a lawyer or to become something that they're going to be
Yes.
very proud of based on what they've heard while they were coming to America, right? And it's like they
Correct.
say, everybody paints this picture of America being that the streets are paved of gold as if it was heaven, right? And then when they get here, they realize that it was fake gold rather than real gold. You actually got to hustle, to make
Right.
ends meet, right?
Yes.
So I mean, it is a blessing to some extent. I've always said, because you have to prove yourself from scratch, but other people can consider it as a handicap. It just depends on your perspective on it.
Absolutely. And I love that you touched that, we tend to fall into our parents' dreams, and we tend to forget about ours. And that also falls in the category of living under other people's expectations. And it comes to a certain age in our life to where we should live under our own expectations versus other people's expectations, and actually pursue our passions.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you from experience, I remember growing up at the age of, I think I started working at the age of 13.
Okay.
Uh, for those of you guys who don't know, I mean, pretty much is I grew up in a household where my dad was an alcoholic. And
And you and I can relate that in that
oh, yeah,
aspect.
definitely. We've had conversations about this. And
Absolutely.
just growing up in that household, you see the addiction, you see the emotional roller coaster that goes with in being
Yes.
an addict. So my
Correct.
dad actually passed away when I was in the fifth grade, give or take. What are you, 10 years old? My dad had passed
Wow.
away for a 15-minute time span.
Wow.
And there was a doctor that did not give up on him. He kept how do you pronounce it? Resuscitating him, by performing
Mhm.
CPR and trying to bring him back, and finally revived him.
Wow.
So my
I'm just
dad,
like literally just getting the chills from hearing this.
this is something that I've never shared with anyone because it's something that I've always kept dear to my heart because it's always been my motivation on why I've never drink or why I'll have a cup or two or times where I drink beyond my where I'm going to lose control of myself, right? Because in my heart and in my mind, I remember, sometimes, the verbal abuse that used to go on in the household or stuff like that. But when I started working at 13, I remember my parents would say, uh, my mom more than anyone would try to manifest a goal. Hey, you know what? We're one day gonna own a business. We're one day you're gonna have people working for you. One day you're gonna have, and it was like if I was restricted to that dream, like if they were laying out the path for me, and it wasn't until I graduated college that I finally built the courage to say, hey, you know what? That's your dream. That's never been my dream. This is a dream
Wow.
that I have set for myself. So
Yes.
sometimes it does become difficult because it's so easy to misconstrue what you have set for yourself to what other people have set for you.
I totally agree to that.
You know,
If it would have been my mom's dream, I would have been a pediatrician. I would have been a nurse or a lawyer. And I mean, I was like, no way. Like, I hate needles. I am not touching somebody else. Like, I'm not cleaning no one's diapers.
my dad told me one time, I'll never forget, he's like, why don't you become an engineer? Why don't you become like a lawyer or an accountant if you're not going to work at the carpet store? And I told him, I go, Dad, dele gracias a Dios que con el talento que tengo, that I got to this far.
Correct.
you know, let me translate that into English. It's like, God, be grateful for the talent that I have, that I was able to graduate as a teacher and, than anything else.
True. No, and not in no disrespect. It's like I feel the same way because if I had to take another math 125 or something, I was done in college.
Yeah, it's difficult. But see, one thing that I always preach to my students is this, and this is a reality of it, right? Parents always want the best for you. They're always going to
Yes.
be there to encourage you. They're always going to be there to support you. They're always going to be there to pick you up. But the reality is, how many of our parents in our community can afford, if it wasn't for financial aid, can afford to go off to, big time school?
Right.
So there's a stigma
No
within our
way.
own community that if you don't go to college, you fail. But there's so many successful people out there that have never gone to college and have become very successful.
Yes. Yes. And I love that you bring that point up because I feel that a lot of people think and they correlate success to some type of schooling. And at the end of the day, the most successful entrepreneurs or the wealthiest people in the world don't have that. Don't Most of them dropped out of college. Most of
Hmm.
them, never even finished or started college.
Absolutely.
And there's a quote that says, don't confuse your bachelor's degree for education because you can still, or is it intelligence? Because you can still be stupid and, or ignorant with a college degree.
Exactly. Unfortunately, we tend to value a degree more than we do education. And
Correct.
you'll hear me preach a lot in my classroom is I'm teaching you to learn, not to do.
Yes.
Because
I remember that.
if you're just doing the assignment, what are you getting out of it? Now
Nothing.
we have
Checking a
kids,
box.
yeah. So yay, let me applaud you. You did your homework. Good job. But what am I preparing you for? So some of my exams and some of the stuff that we cover in class, I go further in depth where you have to use your mental intelligence to be able to solve it. You need to be able to use creativity to be able to apply your skills.
Yes.
And
And I remember that because I sucked at math and I hated math. You know this. And you would start the class with a story. And I was like, oh, heck yeah, this is not math. So when you got me all hooked and then you started with the like solve this problem, and I'm like, whoa, okay, now I'm like hooked. Now I'm going to learn.
now you're gonna do it because there's a lot more to life than just a homework assignment. And
Correct.
I had the privilege of being coached, straight out of college. You know,
That's incredible.
I was 23 years old. It was my second month on the job, and very cliche, right? I went into teaching to make a difference, right? And to a
Right.
point, I've always wanted to make a difference back in my community. But my thing is, I wanted to bring something different. And I thought with being able to create a different mathematical aspect, to the student, it would enhance more students to be able to elevate their math skills and be able to apply and enjoy math in a more applicable way. If
Right.
if you
That makes sense.
remember, I think we were the first math class there that we built our own house. We built our own
Yeah.
business. And
I actually used geometry.
exactly, where we were calculating yardage, square footage, to install carpet or flooring in your house. And
Correct.
and then be able to do estimates on construction or homes. And it was bringing
Yes.
something different. But then, when you have to abide by the curriculum and by district policies and by regulations, it made things a lot difficult, to be able
Absolutely.
to
It sure
teach.
does.
Yeah. So like I said, it was right around that time that, I was looking what I was getting paid and say, hey, you know what? I think I went into the wrong career. And it wasn't until I made a phone call to one of my cousins who, at that point had started doing real estate. And I saw him as someone successful, someone that I thought was very interesting in what he was doing. So
Yeah.
um, when I made that phone call and I reached out to him, I said, hey, I need you to teach me what you know so I can be where you're at. And
Boom.
and
See,
people,
and that's key right there. That's so key because I think that a lot of people feel threatened by that.
oh yes.
But that's the opportunity to give back.
Hmm.
And that's how we change the world. That's one more person that you're taking out of the rut.
Yeah. So me making that phone call was probably one of the most, if not the most, life changing conversation I've ever had to this day.
That's amazing.
And people would always tell me, it's like, why are you reaching out to him? Why would you leave your career or have doubts of leaving your career or thoughts of leaving? I'm like, I'm not leaving my career. I'm just going to supplement my career.
Boom.
You-
And it's funny because we share those things or those thoughts with people. And I just spoke about this in another episode that's coming out tomorrow. And those people, I call them like low key haters. They're not mad at the fact that you're going to, is the fact that they wish they could as well have something else to do. and it's like it's almost like dream thieves, because if you're not in the right mindset, that can literally throw you off and be like, oh, you know what, never mind, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not, like, they're asking me why am I doing that? I have a great career.
Hmm. I mean, there's different elements, right? That you can
Absolutely.
that you can discuss when it comes to people who try to rob you of your dreams or of your happiness, you know. And to me, that's never bothered me, to be honest
And
with
that's
you.
that's amazing, and I had to learn that.
Yeah, and I mean, and it was tough. It's been tough, and like I said, I know you and I have always talked about the value of coaching. You know,
Absolutely.
what's the value of a life coach? What's the value of a coach? And I think, to me, the value is how you influence someone to maximize their potential, because that's exactly what was done to me with my cousin Venancio Salcedo, right? He was
Right.
he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time, and I was very self-driven. But in my mentality, my degree was my certification of completion that I had succeeded.
Right.
Just to realize the illusion that it was the start of a new beginning.
And if it wasn't for that beginning, you wouldn't have another beginning.
If it wasn't for that beginning, 3 months later, I wouldn't have encountered this new beginning that I can say is the reason why I live the way I live now.
Boom.
My life coaches, and I've been coached by three or four very successful individuals that were part of a mastermind group, that the first time that I joined their meeting, as a 22, 23-year-old kid, I was exposed to learning about a vision, learning about goal setting, learning about how to overcome obstacles, how to structure my life, how to hold myself accountable, how to develop the skills, and the structure more than anything for the plan that I had set forth. For more than anything, they taught me about how to manifest and attract what I wanted.
And live a life by design, which I started learning that at the age of 15, 16. I started, like, everything that I wanted, everything that and it was crazy because I was at the cusp of, you know, learning in the area that I was living, of being a victim per se, and you were teaching me, no, like, you're not a victim. You can attract what you want. You can manifest what you want. So here I am, a teenager, learning that. You started at 22, 23, right? And I'm like, I'm a teenager. And that's what I was explaining to the followers, that's what also allowed, maybe making it into, like, me seeing you more of a father figure as my years came by, because I'm like, he literally watched me grow as a teenager, young adult, to a mature woman, career growth. So it was a little bit different.
Right. And it was those skills that I learned, and I like to call them ingredients,
Yeah.
that the
The
ingredients that
sauce.
were given to me, and those ingredients that I was using at the time in my classroom, because I felt that I needed to teach a life skills class in order to be able to implement this new way of thinking, this new way of learning. I said, if I can teach
Right.
life skills, I can implement this to the class, and I can do this. And at the time, I was telling my coach at the time, I said, I think I'm going to ask to teach a life skills class. And he's like, well, why would you do that? And then I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, don't you have 40 students in front of you now? He's like, yeah. Well, why not teach these 40 students? Why do you need a title? And see, in our beliefs, in our perception of society, in order to be a certain title, we feel we need a degree. We need to pursue uh,
Yeah.
there's a word that I'm looking for, and I lost it off the top of my mind. But there's a certain perception that we have that we have to have this title in order for us to proceed that area of study. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Where some of my life
absolutely.
coaches don't have college degrees, and they've been some of the
Right.
most inspiring and motivating individuals I've ever met.
Exactly. No, and I think that's so key, and in many areas of life.
Right,
It's the experience, it's the exposure. I always say you are what your five closest friends around you are. The more association you have with those five people, it's more of what you are going to be doing. So it's who you spend the most time with, right? So, but at the same time, it's what you do after you spend all that time with those people. And you were going and bringing back and giving. And I think that's one of the things, because you were our high school's like favorite teacher. Everyone loved being in your classroom. Everyone looked forward to your class. And till this day, when people say, like, will you still stay in touch with Pony? I was like, yes, that's my coach. Like, yeah, y'all don't even know.
and you know the funny part is I've always thanked people like yourself and other students who've always that there was a gala that I attended for NAREP a couple years
Okay,
ago,
yes.
2 years ago, and I was sitting there, and one of my former students, I mean Jose Perez, he became a
Yeah.
broker and he became uh, vice president of the organization, and my cousin at that point was a president. So I'm sitting at the event, and he's doing a speech, and he brought something back. He was discussing something about growing up, and it was pretty amazing to hear him call out my name and say, "Hey, you know what? You know, my teacher's sitting here." It's like how how more exciting can that be that he's here to not today, knowing that 15 years ago we were talking about, going into real estate and doing this, and the
Yeah.
guest speaker that he brought to our classroom, I'm now serving under him.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Is
wow, that was amazing. And I shared with him after the ceremony. I said, hey, I want you to know that I still have this book that you gave me full of quotes, and you put inside of it from a future millionaire.
wow.
And he's
Chill.
like, you kept that? I said, I keep a lot of things that students give me.
Yeah.
Because if you can perceive it and believe it, you're going to accomplish it.
Yes. I was reading an article that was published by the Dominican University, and it said that you have a 76% more chance of accomplishing a goal if you write it down.
Oh, absolutely. I've always said a plan without a goal without a plan is just a wish,
Yeah, it's a dream, just a dream.
just a dream.
An idea, a thought. I mean, that's like throwing darts at a wall with no target.
Yep. So,
Literally what it is.
yeah. So see that's where the strength of a vision comes in. I've shared many times, and you've heard me say this numerous times, where I've always said we are one of the only things in this world that come without a manual.
The truth.
Think about
And yes, that's one of the things you've always said. There's
it.
no manual to
There-
our lives.
there's no manual for human life. There's
Yeah.
no, there's nothing. I mean, there's books out there, right, that are written about how to
Like
be a
math
better,
for dummies and all that stuff,
how to
right?
be a better parent, how to, how to get your kids to behave in public. But in reality, there's no right or wrong way of growing up.
Right.
It just depends on what direction do you want to go? How do you want to grow up? where do you see yourself growing up? Because if you think about it, you buy furniture, you get an instructions manual. You buy a computer,
Correct.
you get a setup manual.
Yeah.
You get a TV, you get a setup manual. You
Yeah.
start school, okay, these are the classes you got to take. You get to college,
Yeah.
these are the classes you got to take if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be an engineer, if you want to be a doctor. So everything is pretty written out for us. But for us as humans, the way we think, the way we feel, how to overcome obstacles, how to it's difficult. We don't come with those instructions.
True.
You know, so
It's true. And that's where I feel like that a life coach becomes essential and vital in someone's life. Because I mean, I can remember numerous times where I was lost. I didn't know what direction, or I wanted to reach a new goal, and I just didn't know if I should or if it was okay to even dream that big. And it was the belief you had in me that always pushed me to where now I don't even question my own belief. But for many years, I had to go and fill my tank from you to me because of that same reason.
there was one thing that I always remembered about you was when you first moved to Vegas.
Oh my gosh. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
And I remember you called me and you told me, "Oh my God, I don't know, my world's falling apart. I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know, my mom's gonna move to Vegas. I don't want to stay here with my aunt." And there was certain stuff going on at the time. And then I said, or you didn't want to stay with somebody. I can't remember who it was. And you're like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty much forced to go. And I was like, so why are you crying? Because I'm
But I was
sad.
ready for change. And the funny part is like I was ready for change, but I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, and I'm like, why are you crying? Well, because I'm sad. And I said, remember, I go, feelings are just an emotions that we attach to them. You get to
Yes.
choose what emotions you want. I said, this is a great opportunity. And I had mentioned to you, go out there, you're gonna, get yourself a job, you're gonna go to school. I'm like, this is the best thing that could have happened to you. And I remember we went
Yeah.
about 6 months. You'd be out here every other week. And you're like,
I
I'm
would.
lonely, I'm getting depressed. And I remember
Yeah.
sitting you down one time and I said, okay, let's start setting some goals together. What do you do all day? I stay
Nothing.
home. And I'm like, okay, are you working? Well, not yet because what?
Yeah.
And the hardest thing I remember at that time, we can summarize in one word, is change.
Yeah.
And the reason people are so afraid of change is because of the uncertainty. And I
Correct.
always remember telling you, I go, there's a scripture that I love that I mesmerize and I always use. If you knew you were going to Vegas to live in $1 million home and have an executive position, would you take it?
People, it's an automatic yes because it sounds good. It feels good.
Right. But they can see it, they can visualize it, they can
Correct.
it's within reach.
Right.
But that's where the uncertainty comes in for people where you have to believe in your faith that what you're thinking is actually going to come true. And it
Yes.
does. And a lot of people fear that. That's why people fear of change.
Yeah.
It's not that they're scared of it. It's not that it paralyzes them. What paralyzes them more than anything is just the uncertainty. Because there's a process
Correct.
that you have to undergo to learn, to gain the competency, to be able to be
Yes.
confident enough to say, hey, I could do this.
Right.
And it,
It's so true. Go ahead. Sorry.
and when we go back to what we said at the beginning, is when your parents migrated here, how do you think they felt?
And they didn't even know the language.
Exactly.
Right. And you know, it's one, it goes back to one of those things, like you think that your life is miserable and it's horrible or whatever the case might be, but then there's people that have it way worse out there. I was literally just moving from like 4 hours away from my hometown, and
Hmm.
I felt like my world was falling apart. And it was the best decision that I came to conclusion that I've ever made in my life, to move, to go after in an area and start from scratch and build myself completely and become who I was. And because I made that change, I didn't have the distractions of going out doing this, going out and doing that, or the naysayers or whatnot, or being afraid of what people were going to think because nobody knew me out here anyways. So I had more drive to go out there. And the funny part about that story is that deep down, I wanted to move. I was tired of California in my own way, right? I
Hmm.
wanted change. I wanted to be out of the place I lived in. I mean, we lived in a one single apartment. What that translates, that's a studio. And it was five of us. So I needed change. I wanted change. But unfortunately, with the cost of living and a single mom providing for all of us, it wasn't feasible for her. And moving
Absolutely.
to Las Vegas, Nevada was the only reason and the only way that we could have made any change financially in our family. And now I look back 15 years and I always say, that's the best decision I've made. I don't think that I would have had the focus, the mindset, and it also grew our relationship because although we were separated 4 hours away from each other, it bonded us because I kept resisting and you kept pushing.
Yes, I did.
Sure did. I'm still here. Now I live in Henderson.
But like you said, it's why the push? You know, why the constant battles? And to me, is as a teacher, as a coach, as a friend, my job is to influence people to be the best that they can be. And not
Boom.
everyone likes these conversations.
No, people are afraid of these conversations because of what people say, because they don't believe in themselves. And it's almost as if they are afraid of success.
Right.
And I'm sure you have a lot more to add to that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember when you first went through it, and I was constantly reinforcing you. It's like, look at the bright side. Look at the goal. You know, it was to get an English degree. Look at the way your mom was living here. Look at your surrounding people. What are they doing here? Compare yourself to them who are here to you being there. Is there a difference? You know, are they
Right.
surpassing you? Are they excelling more than you? And you're like, no, no. Then why would you want to come back to a place that's going to hold you down? You know,
Right.
for an emotional satisfaction, build your own emotional satisfaction.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of that stuff is through gratitude. You know, it's through
Yes.
providing hope. I like to
Yes.
talk to kids, and they're like, Mister, you keep it 100. I have a student now that he's like, Mister, I'm going to be a real estate agent. And he's in the ninth grade. He
Nice.
goes, it's always been my goal. And that I have full classes. And I tell all the kids that, how come you guys never ditch? Oh, we're not going to ditch this class, Mister. We like this class. You know, but you know, but
That's the truth.
but that's what. See, the thing you had, you persevered all your obstacles. You were very persistent.
Yes.
You know, you always wanted what we were doing, if that makes sense. When I would share, look, Gabby, this is what I'm doing. This is how do I get there? We'll follow your steps. You know,
Yes.
I seen I remember my coach had told me one time. He said you always have to start connecting the dots backward, not forward. And I
Yeah.
said, well, how do you go about that if you don't know where you're going to be 2, 3 years from now?
Yeah.
And I remember he said, well, the reason you don't know where you're going to be 2, 3 years from now is because you haven't set it forth. And I was like, wait
Okay.
a minute. So that was right around the time where I had told you to write your vision letter, remember?
Yeah.
And I said, create your vision. What does the future hold for you? What does it look like? And there's these conversations, like I mentioned earlier, it's people don't want to touch on it because they don't know. They've never been taught this.
Yeah.
In schools now, it's a form of institutionalized learning.
Correct.
Teach you,
That's a fact.
yeah, we teach you what to think, not
Yeah.
how to think.
And
Because
that's huge.
exactly,
Huge,
because
Rachel.
imagine if we can empower students on how to teach. I encourage students to question teachers.
Yeah,
Why am I
absolutely.
learning this? How is this going to help me in life? How can you help me
Yeah.
become a better student? What techniques or strategies can you give me that will encourage me, that will help me take my mom out of poverty, that I can break the chains of generational
Oh,
poverty? Help me overcome that. Because eight
right.
times three,
Versus making me a victim. Yeah.
exactly. So when you start developing kids on how to think, you start to change society. You start uh, a mental revolution. You start to
Yes.
change the standards of a family.
Correct.
And that's one thing you did.
Way out of and you know, I I don't lie about this. I lived in the hood for 31 years of my life. Until now, I live in the second safest city in America. And it took 31 years to break a generational trait. But it was in the last 15 years of that hard work and effort,
Hmm.
constant dedication, constant resistance, obstacles. I mean, I went to help, but guess what? I never got a motel there. I never decided to stay there.
Yeah,
And that's what we as people need to give hope back to the people in our community. And this is how we change society, how you're saying it. We don't change society by continuously telling them that they're victims and to continue to be victims. We change them by letting them know they're not victims and there is a way out. And we have to get out in order for them to see that there is a way out.
absolutely. And I've always said the biggest way you can teach someone that they live in poverty or that they live in something less fortunate is exposing them to something more fortunate. Because think about it, growing up in Southgate, to me, Southgate was one of the best cities, around the area.
Right.
I never realized I was broke until I started going to
No,
college, and I
correct.
started seeing, some of the cars other students were driving, some of the clothes other kids were wearing, you know,
Yeah.
the way other kids communicating, the vocabulary they use, the way they
Right.
was dressed,
That's shocking,
and I
right?
was like, holy crap! I'm like,
I remember one instance I went to, since I was in student council,
uh-huh,
I went with Miss Mayoral to a conference for student leadership at the Doubletree by Hilton.
hmm
And it was so crazy because the only like time I heard about the Doubletree or the Holiday Inn type of hotels was in a song. And and I went there and I seriously did not know why I had so many forks because in my home we used one. I was 16, 17, and I had no idea. I learned and I went back to my home and I taught my siblings because I never wanted them to get embarrassed anywhere else. I didn't know that it was self etiquette that you had to wait for everyone else in the table to have their food in order for you to start eating.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the way that you learned it was through the exposure that you were given by somebody.
Yeah. And I had to be willing to go through that. And that's the tough question. Are people willing to go through that?
Are people willing to go through that? There's many elements to that question.
Are they willing to go through the struggle like that we're talking about? Like I had to be willing to go through all the, you know, the rut and the embarrassment and how to go back and teach it back home, right? To change for my siblings.
Right.
But a lot of people are not willing to go through that. They'd rather just stay in their own and not get exposed like that.
Right. See, there's a lot of elements that I've always said contribute to that. And one of the elements that contributes to that is fear.
Yeah.
I've always said that fear stands for false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
So people will paralyze themselves with the unknown. For example,
Yeah.
your mom made a bold move to Vegas.
Yeah, she did.
And some people could say that's the dumbest thing you've ever done. But then you got someone else who'll tell you that's the smartest move that you've ever done.
Right.
It's the same action, two different perceptions.
Mm-hmm.
So the element that I'm talking about are people afraid to deal with the struggles. Well, they're going to struggle regardless. It's either going to be an uphill struggle or it's going to be a downhill struggle. But the struggle is always going to be there.
Yeah.
The next thing is the dream bigger than your ego?
Boom. Thank you for saying that. I always tell people, ego is not your amigo.
Yeah. Is your dream bigger than your ego? How bad do you want it? What are you willing to do for it? What are you willing to sacrifice for it?
Yep.
The third thing comes in the form of learning.
Okay.
If I'm going to achieve this dream, how am I educating myself with this dream? Because with dream comes numerous types of uncertainty and failures.
Yeah.
And we have to sit back and see is the only reason there's going to be uncertainty is because you don't have the proper education within that dream to realize that I can make this work. Or I'm not even going to say to make it work. Yeah. It's just to develop your confidence and self-esteem to say, hey, I'm going this route.
Yeah.
See, my coach tells me last year, he said, you got to come up with you got to come up with 7 ways to generate more income.
Mm-hmm.
So I started counting the types of incomes that I had coming in. And then I said, okay, I got it. I don't question those above me. They're there for a reason. I don't question my coaches. I'm like Forrest Gump. I do as I was told. I'm just going to run and I'm going to run and I'm going to run. So I was able to generate.
I think I can relate to that.
Yeah. So I was able to generate different streams of income by just manifesting it.
Yeah.
So you're going to struggle regardless. But again, if you never give a kid the exposure to something better, they're never going to realize what life is, the situation that they're in.
I agree with that. Totally. And that's why I love these platforms. And that's one of my reasons, because anyone can search a YouTube, anyone can go on Instagram, anyone can hear a podcast. I want to give a platform to people to show them that you can get out of here. You can manifest and become, because I was that kid and I lived in your same neighborhood and I was able to get out. And I always say it takes the same energy to be broke minded than the same energy not to be broke minded. So it's still, huh?
I'm gonna give you a different one.
Go for it.
It takes less energy to be successful than it is. Hold on. It takes less energy to be successful than to fail and recover success.
Yeah, it totally.
Because think about it. If you dig yourself in a hole, you wasted energy. Right?
Yeah,
Now, you got to spend energy to dig yourself out of that hole just to get to par,
yeah,
just to get back to the same level where you started. That's
yeah.
double the energy. Now, imagine if you
It
could
reminds me,
imagine utilizing
remember the quote?
which one?
Going up the stairs. When you go up the stairs of success, you said, always take a step to the side, not a step back, because now you got to spend energy to get to the step you were at,
Exactly.
and you got to start all over.
Yeah.
Instead of starting, just take a step to the side, you said, and then go back to the, like, you laterally move to the step again and move up versus going down and having to go here and to go up.
Exactly. So you're wasting.
I remember that.
You're actually wasting double the energy, to dig yourself out of a hole. Now there's times where, that I felt tremendously. So those are the times that I've always taken a step to the side. You reflect, you educate, you seek help, and then
Yeah,
and then you march forward.
for sure. I remember the reason why I even have you as my coach, and this relationship even started as a coachee, is because I asked for help. I didn't know how to fill out a scholarship letter, that I didn't even know I was eligible. And here you were. And as much as, I love my mom, and my mom took a hard time to even come to the realization that she couldn't help me anymore, because she had not gone to college. She had not, experienced the things that you had already experienced that I needed to go to. And it took her a while. Like at the beginning, she was not okay. A Hispanic mom, like hovering over her kid. She was like, wait, who's this guy Juan, But then she was like, oh no, go to Juan. After a while, she's like, go ask him. And I remember, and had I not asked for help, this wouldn't even be, I would not even be here trying to help our community back.
Right.
So I thank you for that. That you didn't shame me. You made asking questions okay. So when you sit here and you tell me, I tell the students to ask questions and to question the teachers. I was like, sounds like him.
Yeah.
Because that's normal, and that should be normal. We should not immediately become defensive when we're being questioned. That's an opportunity to show our true colors and what we're all about.
Right. See, I was, like I said, I was blessed that I got coached at a very young age, and till now I still have coaches.
Yes,
and
same.
I seek help, and I ask so many questions. Sometimes I'm that one that when you're in a meeting that people say, can you just shut up so we can leave? But
That's me.
but I'm that one because with the answers comes confidence.
Yes, absolutely.
With confidence comes that next step of faith.
Yeah,
And that next step of faith could be the next break.
yeah, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Right. It's increasing your capacity. Correct. Exactly. And that's key. I talked about that in one of my newsletters that goals are meant for you to be able to um, reach them. You put them in writing, and you are able to go forward with it. However, it you put them in writing to aim for them, and if you never would have put them out there, you would have never even accomplished them. So increasing your capacity is just to see how much more you can do. So that the fact that you have 60 goals and you reached 50, I mean, that's a lot more than the six that you had to begin with, and it's continuously increasing your capacity. So that's incredible. That's amazing that you were able to do that. So increasing that capacity allows you to aim for more and allowing you to stretch yourself. That the more you do, the more you can. And it was goes back to a thought that people think that you can actually find time, and it's just like no, you make time. And a lot of things like I notice this a lot. The people that are doing more and going more in life tend to continue to do more and add more, and but it's because we're increasing that bandwidth.
Right. And here's the thing: if one thing that you'll have a difficulty with is getting hold of someone who's successful.
Yeah.
Someone who's successful, it's very difficult to get a hold of because they're always on their goal. They're focused on what their next move is. They're focused on their conversations. So they're always on the goal, but you really have to put ink to paper.
Yes.
If you want dreams to come true and you want to see the power of manifestation,
Mm-hmm.
is start living a life with intention
Yeah.
and awareness. I always give an assignment to my students, and I say, your assignment today is to see a horse, or to see something. And the majority of the students will come back and say, Mister, I saw a horse on a billboard. I saw a horse on, on a Mustang. I saw a horse on TV. And they're like, well, and then you'll have other students who'll say, yeah, but you didn't see a real live horse. So your own belief system and your own mindset set will play tricks on
Yeah.
you. So the way I counter that is, you're right. It wasn't a real horse, but I never told you that it was going to be a real horse that you were going to see.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's not what I interpreted. I interpreted whatever your belief system led you to.
Yes.
And I always share this, and I love using this analogy because it'll tell you the strength of your mindset and your experiences, right?
Yeah.
So I always ask, if I was to ask you to touch the stove, would you touch it?
Well, is it on or off?
Exactly. Most people would say, and you because you know the answer to it, but most people will say, oh no, I'm not going to touch it. You're crazy. Because in some way, manner, or form, they probably got burned. So
Yeah.
their belief system thinks stove, hot, ouchie, hurt, pain in those steps. And your mind, it's like a filing cabinet, it files everything.
Yeah. Sure
So when
does.
you're getting to a point that's going to lead you to a bad experience, your mind will automatically pull you.
Yeah.
But here's the objective to that. Who's in control? The boss or the employee?
The boss.
The boss. So who's the boss? You or your mind?
You.
So you have to be in control of your mind.
Yeah.
You have to be able to tell your mind. And the majority of us don't live in awareness. The
Oh.
majority of us live in a routine daily life that we go through the flow.
Yeah.
So whatever life throws at us, it's what we swallow.
True. And I think that that's one of the reasons why people don't reach their potential
Absolutely.
because of the
Absolutely.
mind, and you self sabotage yourself
Yeah. We'll talk ourselves out of something before we even talk ourselves into something.
because it's easier in your mind to find excuses. And I mean, to be honest, there's 101 excuses out there. But from what I've learned from you is you just need one reason to actually put forward and reach your potential.
And attach a goal to it.
Yeah,
By doing this, it will get me to this.
correct.
You know, I think a lot of people also, another element that restricts them from reaching their potential is because they feel that they need to have something in order to be something. So, in my early stages of coaching, I was introduced to a be do have, and there's a book that was written by Daryl Rutherford. It's called Being the Solution, and
Yeah.
he emphasizes on being able to manifest in your life what you want by being that person now.
Yeah.
And I've always emulated my life, and this was brought up to me the other day because subconsciously I never thought about it, but I've always emulated my life around my cousin
Yeah.
because he's the one who got me to this point. He's the one who's led me to maximize my potential. That he instated in me that if you want to be this person at this level, then you need to start acting like that person at this level.
Right.
So if you're gonna spend, say you want to drive, give or take, and I'm not, you know, uh, uh, advocating for this, but if you want to make more money, spend more money.
Yeah. It's true.
You know, if you,
And you got to take it from the other side on the screen, that the people that are watching, you got to take it, for the analogy, right? We're not saying
Right.
go
You
out
can't
there
call
and
the analogy.
yeah. And it's so true because even through my career, so many times my bosses were telling me to do tasks and do things that I precisely was not getting paid for. And it would piss me off. But then I'd go back to you and you're like, but the knowledge that you're getting, don't you want to be a director? Don't you want to, and I was just like, oh yeah. So then I was just like, man, this is free knowledge. Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, I should be more grateful for the fact that they are taking the time and trusting me to hand me a task that is not in my job description.
Right.
And because I thought myself, you know what, this is where I want to be. So the fact that I have to act like as the regular hourly employee, I have to act like I was the salaried employee. And that's really
And
what
that's
helped me.
and those are opportunities that we don't see. I mean, it's sad to say, right, that we always we always relate success to money
Right.
or to materialism, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes success can just be happiness.
Yeah. Your own peace of mind. Yeah.
Success can be inner peace.
Yeah.
You look at the potential that certain kids have, right? It's like that athlete who
Hmm.
has all the potential in the world, but he can't get to the next level. Or if he's at the next level, he gets cut by certain teams because of his attitude.
Yeah.
And that's where you start to see that it's more about me than it is about everybody else.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's so true.
And yeah, so I mean, to go back and say, what, there's a lot of elements that I can say can hold back people from reaching their potential. And we haven't even touched on belief.
Yeah.
One of the main ones, and the main one is belief.
Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself because, I mean, that's one of the hardest things. You'll talk 9 out of 10 times, you'll talk more harsh to yourself
Hmm.
than you would positive.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And that's why I believe that coaching is vital because sometimes you have to borrow someone else's belief until you build your own.
Right? I shared with Kaylee the other day, right? My daughter.
Yeah.
she
My
was
little
she,
sister.
she her little self talk sometimes makes me laugh.
Yeah.
So she's like, she was doing a test, right? And she said, Dad, she goes, you're not gonna be too happy. She goes, I know I'm an idiot. I should have done this,
Aw.
but I just didn't feel this, and she had all these negative thoughts, right?
Right.
So she was down talking herself. So I go, what happened? She goes, well, I got a 6 out of 10 on this test. Well, why did you get a 6 out of 10? And then she goes, well, I read it, but I kind of wanted to finish the book, so I read it pretty fast, right?
Right.
I go, so then why are you an idiot? I said, you just figured out why you didn't do well on the test.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, I'm just weak minded. I just
Mhm.
sometimes I just don't think I'm smart enough, and I said, compared to who, right? So she starts giving me this. So then I said, okay. I said, everything that you just told me, I want you to say the same thing to your friend.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell my friend that. I said, well, why wouldn't you? That's rude, Dad. You don't tell people you're dumb. You don't tell people this. And I
Boom.
go, right. I go, so let me ask you, if you won't tell your friend that, why do you tell yourself that?
Exactly.
And she's like, Dad, why do you always have the right answers? So because I'm your dad, I'm supposed to,
Yeah.
But one of the things that you want to talk to is be honest with yourself and realize why is it that you failed or you didn't pass.
Yeah.
Before you're gonna badmouth yourself, you got to be very cautious of what thoughts are coming into your head, what words are
Mhm.
coming into your head, or how you're talking to yourself.
Right.
Because she's 8 years old, so I'm getting her to look at this. I'm giving her the exposure. I'm giving
Yeah.
her, and she's like, Dad, she goes, it makes sense.
Right.
I'll put her out of her comfort zone. She had a tryout the other day for it's called a Broadway show, right?
Yeah.
And she can sing. So I said, "You're gonna sing," and she's like, "Well, I don't want to." I said, "Well, you don't have a choice."
Yeah.
I said, "This is your choice. Either you sing or you do this." And she's like, "Well, I'd rather do this."
Right.
But it's not that I'm restricting her of living my dream because that's not my dream at all.
Right.
It's encouraging. It's encouraging her to get out of her comfort zone.
Correct. To where she can explore and she can decide for herself what she does want to do.
Hmm. I get asked all the time, "What do you expect from your daughters?" I said, "Happiness."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" For them to be respectful, independent, and happy, educated women.
Bingo.
I said, because if they're happy, that's half the battle.
Yeah. That's the one thing that especially women struggle with: self-acceptance, happiness, self-care. And you're already instilling these and changing a generation just within your own. I mean, you've already done it with many of us, but now is you're actually doing it in your home, and to see that transparency is it's crucial, because a lot of people outside their home, they're one person, but behind their closed door it's a different ball game.
Right.
So that's just it's that's what builds you. That's what attracts us to continue to coach with you.
Right. And
Like,
you know what? More than anything, it's just keeping it real. And I've always said one of the greatest qualities that's being diminished in society is common sense.
yeah, don't leave home without it.
Yeah, and a lot of us just don't have the common sense nowadays,
Yeah,
right?
it's
You
so
know, we,
true.
we that's a value in itself. So, if anything, I mean, what you're doing here is you're bringing value to people. You're providing a platform so they can speak out. I mean,
Yes,
and not everyone's going to agree with you, and and
that's
and it's
okay.
fine,
Yeah.
because as a leader, you're only going to influence people.
Yes.
You're not going to change anybody.
No, not at all. Not
People are going to
looking to.
change. Yeah, and people are going to change within themselves. And I think John Maxwell said it in an interview one time where he was doing a book signing, and they asked him, "Hey, I disagree with you on one of your chapters," and he said, "Okay," and he kept going about his business.
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, you didn't hear me. I disagree with that." And he turned around to the man, and he told him, he said, "Look, my job is to influence your way of thinking. If you disagree, then you disagree.
Hmm.
I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about what you disagree with. It's if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, then don't use it."
Correct. It's like the
And that's
going
it.
to the grocery store. You're gonna get what you want, and all these advertisements and things are only hoping to influence you. And if they don't, they don't. They're not bothered.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
cousin said it best when we talk about influencing. He used to work at the market, right? And then he said, "We're selling the pound of watermelon for $1," and no one would like come near the watermelon section. He'll get on the mic and he'll say, "Hey guys, for 25 cents, uh, I think it was like for 25 cents, we're selling a quarter of the pound for 25 cents of the watermelon." Boom. Everybody runs to the watermelon. And it's like, it's the same thing, but it's just the way you phrase it.
Correct.
You're going to learn from somebody, and some people you're not. And it is what it is. At that point, you just walk up and, you take what you take, and that's it.
Yeah, it's absolutely for sure. So, in closing thoughts, I always like to end things on a lighter note. And I also wanted to thank you so much for coming on today and just sharing perspective and mindset. And I look forward to having you here on another topic as well here in the future. I
Oh,
know.
nice. Thank you.
I wanted people to hear you because I keep talking about you. I keep, raving and on my newsletters. I'm like, okay, they need to put a face to a name. They got to hear him. They got to know about him. So I love how we touched a little bit on childhood and everything. And as we go deeper into the podcast, I am going to have topics, and I definitely want to bring you because I believe that you have so much knowledge and influence that you can bring to the platform. But on a lighter note, I like to always end with, I am broke because I drink coffee. I mean, if you know, Starbucks coffees are $5 a coffee. If it wasn't for coffee, I'd have more money. So I like to ask you, you're broke because
I can't answer that because I don't have a broke mentality.
what addiction do you have that you're like, man, if I just didn't spend that on that?
Clothes.
There you go.
I think I think I would have more money if I stayed away from designer clothing. I think, and you know what? It's funny that you say that because we always look at different things, right? Like,
Yeah,
where can we cut back at? Where can we do? But I just come to learn it just to enjoy life. If you can afford it, great.
correct.
It's not that things are expensive. It's just that you just can't afford it at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
You know,
I agree. But
and
sometimes I've been looking at my Starbucks bill and I'm like, dang, I drink that much coffee?
we used to eat out a lot, and
Mhm.
and that's where I started noticing that my health was taking a toll.
Yeah.
So my wife, which is the most amazing woman you'll ever meet, she's been by my side
Yes.
from the beginning to now. If it wasn't for her and her support and my kids' support, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. But I came to the point one time like, damn, babe, we spend a lot of money eating out. So she's like, so what, you expect me to start cooking? I'm like, yes.
Yes.
you know, but I would probably say clothes.
That's
I shop a lot.
awesome.
I shop a lot. She shops a lot. Not a good combination.
Right? You're like, that's the bad combo.
Yeah,
But everything else is perfect. It's just that one thing.
yeah. I can't tell my wife, babe, you want to go to the mall?
She's
Because
like,
she'll be in the car before she even says yes.
that is funny.
Oh, I think I think clothes. I am broke because I
Just
shop.
you shop. That's
I
awesome.
like to shop.
Awesome. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for today and for being able to pour onto us and sharing your mindset and perspective about everything. And like I said, we look forward to seeing you again in the podcast. And for those of you that are listening today, remember you can subscribe to my newsletter down at the links below. Subscribe to our YouTube channels. You can find us on Instagram and all major podcast platforms. Share it with your friends and family if it added value to you today. And always remember that you always get more with Gaby, even a double O and more. Till next time. All right.